Okay, wonderful. I think we are live, but I'm going to wait just a little bit because I'm not 100% sure. We are live. I have confirmation, and I apologize in advance for the terrible sounds that are happening outside. But hello, hi, thank you for being here. I'm going to spotlight myself. And just remind my wonderful, thank you. Okay, let me turn this off too. Great, and if my colleagues who are also on the call with me could turn off their video until it's their turn to speak, that would be great. Turn off your audio as well, if that's possible. If not, then we'll work with it. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. I'm going to go over here. So good morning for me, good morning, good afternoon for many of you, I'm sure, and good evening even for some. Thank you so much for joining us today for One Home, One Sky, a seminar for the protection of dark and quiet skies. My name is Kelly Blumenthal. I am the Deputy Director of the IAU's Office for Astronomy Outreach, and we have a really exciting lineup of speakers for you today. We have science communicators, astronomers, concerned citizens, and cultural experts. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that although this is an international seminar, I am speaking to you from the ancestral homeland of the Massachusetts, the Pawtucket, and the Namkeag peoples. I recognize that for hundreds of years, there have been repeated violations of land, water, and sovereignty by people who look like me. I realize also that land acknowledgement such as this is really necessary, but also insufficient, an insufficient step toward progress. But the Office for Astronomy Outreach strives to make astronomy accessible to everyone. And we do this through the projects that we lead and the networks that we help build. Now, we try to do this, even though sometimes we fail to bring in the voices that so desperately need to be heard. And I would like to encourage all of you, wherever you are, to critically consider the Native peoples who inhabited and still inhabit the land on which you live, work, and thrive. But I hope we can all agree that dark and quiet sky affects all of us, regardless of the nature of our relationship with the sky. Light pollution doesn't just impact whether or not we can see the stars, but it can negatively influence our health and the health of our ecosystems. So our first speaker today has been at the forefront of fighting light pollution for more than 20 years. And that's Connie Walker. She's been a scientist at the National Science Foundation's Moore Lab for 20 years, creating programs on dark sky education, astronomy, and optics, and sharing them via workshops, talks, and events all over the globe. She's been actively involved in the United States and internationally with light pollution issues both on the ground and more recently in space. And as of this April, she's taken on the co-directorship of the new IAU Center on the Protection of Dark and Quiet Sky from Satellite Constellation Interference. Quite a mouthful. But Connie, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to remove my spotlight, give you the spotlight.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And I must say too that I am on, and especially one of our main observatories is on the ancestral lands of the Tohono O'odham Nation, as well as the Yaqui Nation here in the Tucson, Arizona area. And thank you for bringing that up, because that is a very important issue always to express, and because it is well deserved. Okay, well, hello everybody. My name is Connie Walker, as she said, and I am from an observatory called Moore Lab. And let me just bring my my PowerPoint up, and if you can tell me if you can see that, Kelly. I think she's muted.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm so glad that that you all could join us. And let me tell you a little bit about our observatory first, because that is something that oops, I don't have my Oh, okay, here we go. I just want to show you this, kind of cool. We have 3 locations, and my screen is to my left here, sorry. And we have 3 locations, and 3 locations are here right nearby, Kitt Peak National Observatory to Tucson, Arizona in the USA, and also in Hawaii in the USA, on that island far to the west of the continent, is Gemini Observatory North, and there's Gemini is the twins, if you remember from mythology, and there's one in the south in Chile, two of these twin observatories, and then also there's the Cerro Inter-American Observatory with a bunch of telescopes in Chile on Cerro Pachon again. So let me go to the next slide. So that's just giving you a glimpse into the kind of observatories that we have in the United States. And then I just want to set the stage a little bit. We have a beautiful example to give you and to share with you. If you could put your mind in this scene that is to the right-hand side of your screen. There's a beautiful trickling brook, there's green grass. Imagine being there. Imagine that it was in your family for many generations and it inspired your parents to be artists, either a poet or someone who paints, and an aunt to compose, your siblings to go into science. I mean, so many ways a beautiful scene like this could actually inspire you. And then one day you came home to find the stream and the land polluted. What would you do about it? Now, if you can imagine the landscape is actually the night sky, what would you do if the night sky were polluted? So we find this almost, a very, very common experience. 83% of the world's population live under light polluted skies, and 99% in the United States and in Europe are mostly living under light polluted skies. So what can you actually do? Light pollution is a very global problem, and I already mentioned the data on this. And it affects so much of our lives. It's not just for the astronomers getting their data, but it's also because it affects energy consumption, it affects cost, it affects safety. Something that's overly lit is not actually a safe situation, believe it or not. It affects human health in terms of our aging eyes from glare, in terms of the way it affects our sleep at night, and also at their ties to cancer. It affects wildlife in the ways that in their habits and their habitats. For instance, migrating birds. It also very, very importantly affects our cultural heritage. And culturally, for millennia, it has inspired us, as I mentioned before, to become composers and artists and not just scientists. And with that, a loss of inspiration, loss of the night sky, we're going to have a loss of inspiration. So some of the things that we can actually do, or maybe some things you might be familiar with already, but some of you out there might not be. You light only when where you need it. I'm sorry. I'll begin at the beginning. You light only what you need lit. Not you might not need everywhere along a pathway lit. You use only energy efficient bulbs, only as much energy as you need. You shield the lights downward, so the light points downward and not upward. And you light when you need it. So where, when, what you need. And you also choose sort of amber colored lights, which don't have as much blue light in them, which is harmful to our health. And so if you really want to, you can join IDA, and that's the International Dark Sky Association. This association is so special, guys. I mean, it has done so much good. For instance, it has the International Dark Sky Places. That is an incredible program that they have. About 200 that are accredited so far, and 200 more on the dockets. And when they certify dark sky fixtures, And there's about 10,000 of those in various countries that are approved. They have principles and policies that they promote. They have lighting ordinances you can use as cities, for examples. Best practices, for instance, if you want to know other advances in technology for things like electronic messaging boards, and it provides loads of very incredibly important information on their website and social media. And if you want to get involved with, they have like, I don't know, actually thousands of people that are involved in as delegates or some sort of volunteer with the International Dark Sky Association. Just go to darksky.org. Another great fun way to get involved is to be part of the international citizen science program called Globe at Night, which has been running for over 16 years. I have the honor of directing this. It is done in partnership with the IDA through Noir Lab, and invites scientists to actually measure their night sky brightness and submit their observations from a website or a computer using their app or a smartphone. Actually, is a really very easy way to donate observations. Anyone, anywhere can be a part of this from ages 8 and up. And it's a 10-day campaign that shifts around because you never know, you know when the moon is up, and you have to try to avoid when the moon is up because that's a natural light bulb in the night sky. And so to avoid it, you pay attention to the dates that don't have the moon in the early part of the night. Okay, so there's 10 nights a month that do that. And you can see the schedule on the globeatnight.org website. And this is various ways the steps you take to get the measurements. It's very easy once you have turned off as many lights as you can, you found the constellation, you go to the report page. And if you have a smartphone, then the date, the time, and location don't need to be inputted. It just goes in, it automatically shows up. Because of your GPS on your phone, and then you choose the chart that most resembles what you see in the night sky. You choose the cloud cover. They're all pictures, so it's very easy to choose. It's in a variety of languages, this report page, so you won't have any problem going through the steps. And then you just basically click the submit button and you're done. And it takes only a minute, but we advise you get dark adapted first, get your eyes adjusted to dark for about 15 minutes. We've had so many success stories, some really incredible stories to tell. And one of them is that middle picture there, those two middle pictures, they're elementary and middle school kids who, like 3,700 of them, who took a huge number of data around their school district and made a map, but they wanted to visualize it as a Lego map. Believe it or not, a Lego map. 35,000 Lego pieces to make this map. And that was pretty impressive. Then we have high schoolers, for instance, that made a map of their city with amateur astronomers helping them. And they brought it to their city council to have the laws strengthened of lighting laws in their town, and they succeeded. Then we have college-age students who took part in a study of the lesser long-nosed bat, threatened and endangered species. They wanted to help the bat, and they looked at the routes of the bat took around the city lights. They were amazed. They wanted to know if they needed to make the laws stronger. Okay, so I won't tell you the punchline there. You can ask me. And the other one I want to show you is the general public, the one at the lower left. That you can't see that as well, but that's a bunch of dots. The darker the dot, the darker the sky. So you see that at the left and right. That's where the parks are in Tucson. Tucson is in the middle with much brighter dots there, which means a brighter sky. And we found out that the center of Tucson is 100 times brighter than the parks, the edges of the parks, where it's the darkest. So that was in the news as well. Very cool stuff. Now, IAU is an incredible organization, and the International Astronomical Union has so many opportunities for dark skies awareness. It's just mind-blowing, actually. What really kicked things off was in 2009, there was the International Year of Astronomy. What a program. And 2 legacy programs, at least, survived from that time. And one is, I already told you about Globe at Night, but the other is called Dark Sky Rangers. And if you want a bunch of activities for elementary and middle school kids that will just knock your socks off, you go to that webpage there, and I'm sure they'll give you I have a PDF file with active links in it that I'm sure Kelly can share with you later. The OAD, which is the Office of Astronomy for Development, has projects every year that they fund. And one year there was a project on Dark Skies Africa, where kits were given out, workshops were held on how to use the kits for 11 different African countries. We have the International Year of Light in 2015, where we had a very bad name, Quality Lighting Teaching Kit. Well, anyway, it says what it is. And that, if you want to download all the activities and all the materials that are in that kit, you can go to that website there. There's a wonderful centennial project that I think a lot of you might be involved with, because a lot of you out there are Dark Skies Ambassadors, the IAU Dark Skies Ambassadors. Well, it was born in the year of the Centennial Project in 2019, along with another kit called Turn on the Night Kit. And those, I only have 5 more left or so, and they're all going to people who had participated and are continuing to participate in that Dark Skies Africa program. Now, there's a research side, not just an educational side, but a research side that IAU, or the International Astronomical Union, heavily participates in. And there's 2 leading parts of IAU that actually orchestrate these different research components. One is the Executive Committee Working Group, and it's called Dark and Quiet Sky Protection. And the other is a commission. They have many commissions, and this is one of them, on the protection of observatory sites, basically. And those 2 groups, every 3 years, basically, when they have the General Assembly meeting, the big poobah meeting of all astronomy, all astronomers. So it's going to be one this year. And every single 3 years, we are having some sort of big meeting or focus meeting. And this year it's going to be on the 4th and 9th. So if anyone's interested, it's online and in South Korea. And then we have various ground-based and space-based conferences. We have 4 that we orchestrated in the last 2 years, both some on land-based light pollution and all of them on space-based light pollution. So we had a great deal of eye-opening discoveries in those particular workshops. And then the one that we're going to have next, I think the IAU, is in October 2023. Lots of things going on, guys. But I want to turn your attention to something that is new, something that is, it did that on its own. Okay. All right, well, anyway. It's something that is very, very important. And it's just come up in the last, 3 years ago in May. There were like 60 actually Starlink satellites that were launched. But just to draw your attention again, remember, if some of you are too young to remember, but 20 years ago, there were rapid advances in technology, and this led to the invention of the light emitting diodes, or LEDs or LEDs, as outdoor lighting. And today we're in the initial years of a very analogous, what they call watershed moment, as with the LED revolution, but this time it's not on the ground, it's in space. And the very rapid development of very efficient and reusable rockets, for instance, by private companies, has made Earth no longer the exclusive realm of national space agencies. It's now open to everybody. And it's steadily increasing numbers of companies are now launching satellites like you would not believe. And so just in the last 2 years, for instance, it's gone from 2,200 active satellites in space to 5,500. And that's just in 2 years. So it's more than doubled. And there's another 3,000 of inactive. There's 600,000 that are between maybe 1 and 10 centimeters big, because there's accidents that happen in space. There's space debris, satellites break up, and there's only maybe 45,000 of them that can be tracked, and 6,000 of them that are smaller than can be tracked. So there's a lot of different scenarios up there that are kind of important to follow and do something about. And this is what we're trying to do. And maybe there'll be about 100,000 that are active up there. Oh, I should be showing you this by the end of the decade. And I'm just going to show you part of this. This is really gives you a good sense of what's happening. So in 2018, only a few. It gets more and more with the launch of Starlinks and other companies. And you can see how it's going to look pretty bad by the end of our decade. So that gives you a good sense. That's just this year, next year. And some of these are not exactly happening, others are being launched, but this gives you a good idea of what's happening. Okay, so I'll stop that for now. Go on to the next. So the big companies we have been working with and that have been active in trying to find solutions, I have to stress this, they've been active and we are very appreciative. OneWeb, Amazon, and Starlink are three, SpaceX are three of the companies. SpaceX, though, we have to keep in close contact with because they have at least 30,000 that they're planning on putting up there. And this picture to the lower right shows you just a week after launch. They're launched for SpaceX as a group of 60 Starlink satellites, and they take maybe a month or more to disperse. They're clustered together. This is a week after, and they've had a lot of recent launches. There were, in 5 days, 3 launches of 53 satellite constellations each. So we have to really keep in close connection with them and trying to figure out what the best way is to mitigate not just the number, but the brightness of these satellites. That's what really gets astronomical research and people just enjoying the night sky. So getting back to the IU for a minute, to try to solve this problem, we did have as a great foundation those 4 different workshops that I mentioned, or conferences, and this really set the foundation for identifying issues and coming up with what they call mitigation solutions towards addressing this impact, but we needed to continue our work. And the IAU saw fit to create a center, and we are now hosting that center. It's called, as a long name, Protection of the Dark and Quiet Sky for Satellite Constellation Interference, and for short, thank goodness, we're calling it the IAU CPS. So the CPS will act like a bridge with all our stakeholders, both astronomers and industry and the wider community. It'll coordinate efforts and endeavor to unify voices or get everybody on the same table at least, which is not going to be always possible, but we'll try. And we'll continue that research I talked about and produce and disseminate information and resources for people to be able to use. Okay. And the structure looks like this. I know it's kind of a lot to digest here, but what I want to get across is the heart of the center is 4 main, what they call hubs or areas. And one has to do with SetHub. We're going to do a lot of, ask people to help with observations, people to contribute their observations to what they call a data repository or database. And we're going to have a lot of software done, both to predict when the satellites are going to go across observatories and when we could mask them probably, and we can't mask them totally. There'll still be what they call residual effects, but they'll do what we can. Policy is both going to be national and international. And in an international case, we have been working with the UN, which has been very interesting. And they actually start a series of sessions starting tomorrow, or today actually. And then we have the community engagement, which Jessica later on is going to talk more about. And that is an incredible group that's going to try to bring in voices of communities that otherwise might not get heard in this particular instance concerning satellite constellations. We want to give them an opportunity to voice their opinions and actually try to get things that they would like done. So, and then the industry and technology is just what you think. People doing, working with astronomers to do lab testing on brightness, for instance, and other mitigation measures in order, hopefully, to redesign things before they get launched. And then for you guys, now this is a lot. Some of you may not be interested in getting involved in some of this, but a lot of you might. And we have, for instance, partnering in observations. If you can donate observations of satellite constellations to us, we'll have a means by which to do that. If you are already in connection with industry and can help us there, or hardware, what they call mitigation development, or access to figuring out when they pass overhead to observatories, or where you're just enjoying the night sky. Software development in the areas I mentioned before, excuse me. If you are somehow in connection with regulators, some people who make policies, we'd be interested in talking with you, or can do that yourself. Interaction with other IAU offices. I mentioned the Office of Astronomy for Development, for instance. There's an office for astronomy education. And of course, you know about Kelly's office already, the Office of Astronomy Outreach. We need help with the website. Boy, do we need help with the website. And thematic workshops we'll be holding. We need help with that, as well as with the discussion forums, curriculum development to help people learn our tools and learn the topics that we have under the center, and of course, outreach. Any of these you'd like to get involved with, this is what we need help with, and would appreciate your involvement with it. And just to, I'm gonna just go to the next one. I'll skip this one. And I wanna thank you so much for paying attention to this. And I hope you got something out of it. And I look forward to having you contact me or to ask me any questions that you'd like to ask. And I have some websites here too that you might be interested in. Thank you so much. And I'll turn back to Kelly.
Thank you so much for that, Connie. That was amazing. And so many great ways to get involved, which I think is a really important thing. Let me remove your spotlight. Wonderful. So I don't see any questions necessarily from the audience, but I'd like to remind everybody that if you have questions, to please put them in the YouTube live chat. We are monitoring it. Susanna, my colleague at the OAO, is keeping a keen eye on it. So she will be able to take all of your questions and let me know what they are. So if you have any questions for Connie, please let us know. I would like to say that there are a ton of people from all over the world. We have Pakistan, we have Ghana, we have South Africa, we have Ethiopia, someone from Michigan. There's just a wonderful array of international participation, and that's really great. This is obviously something that's deeply important to everybody. So I'd like to move on to our next speaker in a sense. So in addition to our seminar, this month we also had a drawing contest where we encouraged students to think about their relationship with the night sky. And we had 3 winners, all of whom will receive a Bresser Nano AR700 AZ telescope. It's a very nice, very fancy telescope. And we have all 3 of our winners here with us today. So we're going to hear from each of them. And the first is Raresh Maxim, who is 9 years old, and he's from Romania. He's joined by his English teacher, Alina Danpop, and I'm going to spotlight them. So Raresh, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Hello, I am Raresh Maxim. I am 9. I am a student at Grigore Moisil School in Satu Mare, Romania.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for introducing yourself. And thank you, Ms. Pop, for being here as well. So I want to ask you actually what I should do, what I should have done, is I want to share your beautiful drawing that you made. That's not what I want to share. Stop share. I'm terribly sorry for this. Let me close this. And try that again. There we go. Okay, amazing. So Raresh, you had such a beautiful, and I hope everybody can see this and not be distracted by all of these things that are happening here. You had such a beautiful forest with a night sky in your image. And I just want to know if you're able to see these kinds of views from where you live.
Yes, when I go on holiday with my family by car. I can see the forest on our way day to the sea.
That's wonderful. It's amazing that you have such opportunity to see these beautiful skies. So I know that I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I wonder if people could actually see that, because I realize, okay. So wonderful. I'm glad people were able to see it. Thank you so much for drawing it, Radesh, and it's really a wonderful thing. So Alina, I know that you wanted to share something from your colleagues at the school.
Of course. Okay, let me invite you, my colleague, Ionela Modic. She's going to say a few words in Romanian, and then I'm going to translate. And then then I'm going to invite my colleague Teodora, and she will speak as well, and I will translate for her as well.
Suntem bucuroși că suntem câștigătorii concursului de desene lansat de Uniunea Astronomică Internațională pentru celebrarea cerului întunecat.
We are grateful that we are the winners of the drawing contest proposed by the International Astronomical Union in order to celebrate the dark sky.
Suntem recunoscători doamnei Înalt Elisabeta Ana, advisor, Ministry of Education Control Department, coordonatorul proiectului Astro, care ne-a implicat în activitățile proiectului și ne-a oferit posibilitatea de a prezenta desenele elevilor în cadrul seminarului One Home, One Sky, un seminar pentru protecția cerului întunecat și liniștit.
We are grateful to Mrs. Nord Elisabeta Ana, advisor, Ministry of Education Control Department, the coordinator of the project Astro, who involved us in the project activities and offered us the possibility to present drawings of art of our students within the seminar One Home, One Sky, the seminar that has at his core the focus on the protection of the dark and quiet sky. Okay.
Hi everybody. Elevii au participat cu interes la acest concurs, fiind familiarizați cu universul din activitățile anterioare desfășurate în cadrul proiectului Erasmus Plus Stars.
Our students participated with a lot of joy and interest in this contest. They were quite familiar with the universe, with the topic of the universe, from our previous activities developed during our Erasmus Plus project STARS.
Ei și-au dorit achiziționarea unui telescop, dar universul și dumneavoastră sunteți cei care ne-ați îndeplinit acest vis.
One of their aims, our students' aims, was to acquire a telescope, but the universe and of course this contest gave us the opportunity to fulfill this dream.
Vă mulțumim tuturor pentru această oportunitate și ne manifestăm interesul pentru a continua colaborarea cu dumneavoastră.
We thank you all for this opportunity, and we are really interested in continuing our cooperation with your institution.
În viitor, poate nu doar vom privi stelele, ci le vom și atinge.
In the future, we hope that we're going not only to watch the stars, but also to touch the stars.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It was so great to hear from all of you. So I'm going to remove your spotlight. And then, so our next speaker, if you guys could just close off your video, and then Radesh, it was really nice to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
So our next speaker is actually one of the Office for Astronomy Outreach's national outreach coordinators. And he's done an incredible job of engaging his community in protecting his night sky from light pollution. Yaroslav Merk has been an active member of the astronomy outreach community for more than 10 years. He's a section leader of the protection against light pollution for the Slovak Astronomical Society. And he participates in many light pollution related activities in Slovakia. He also coordinates the Slovak participation in international projects, such as Globe at Night and Earth Hour, one of which we actually just heard about. So hi, Yaroslav, thank you so much for being here. I will give you the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. So let me share the screen for everyone to see. So I hope now you can see the screen. So once again, hello, everyone. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk here about the experience with the issue of light pollution in Slovakia, which is a relatively small country in the middle of the Europe. And as was said, I will be speaking as a Vice National Outreach Coordinator for Slovakia, which is the network of the International Astronomical Union Office for Astronomical Outreach, but also as an IAU Dark Sky Ambassador, and on behalf of the Slovak Astronomical Society and the Slovak Union of Astronomers, where, as was said, I'm leading the section dealing with light pollution. So let me share the Slovak experience with the issue of light pollution. And at the beginning, let me, in 3 short points, summarize the present situation in Slovakia. Especially concerning the light pollution itself, we are very similar to other developed countries in Europe. So this can be taken as an example of any other country with similar situation. It is, of course, a serious issue in the major cities, and this of course influences the countryside. And given that in Slovakia, especially the density of towns and villages is relatively high, so that means that there are only a few dark spots in Slovakia, which I would also talk about a bit later. In the figure, actually, you can see my hometown, which is Košice, the second biggest city in Slovakia, in the east part of Slovakia. So you can see how the lightning looks like in the city. And here you can see the well-known map of light pollution. And as I said, basically, we don't have many dark spots in the country where you can really see the untouched dark sky. To mention one thing, one more thing we don't have in Slovakia is any specific regulation of the light pollution in the law. Which is not the case for some other countries, but we don't have anything like that in Slovakia. But there are some mentions about the light in some parts of law. For example, you are not allowed to harass your neighbors with light, as is mentioned in a civil code. Or there are some paragraphs concerning light and limits how much light can shine on the windows, for example, of apartment buildings in the Act on the Protection and Promotion and Development of Public Health. But there is no specific law for light pollution in Slovakia. But on the other hand, what we have, and we are quite proud of it, is that we have a specific section of Slovak Astronomical Society and a Slovak Union of Astronomers, which is devoted to light pollution and to dealing with this issue. And basically, in fact, the astronomers were the first to take action against the light pollution in Slovakia more than 15 years ago. And I decided to summarize the 3 main goals of the section, which we have. First is, of course, to raise awareness about the issue of light pollution, its causes and consequences on the nature, humans, and society. Because basically at the beginning of the century, most of the Slovak people had not heard about the light pollution at all. And with this, it is connected that we just at first need to inform about the issue of light pollution. And the second thing is to educate and all age groups, general public, professional public, about the needs and possibilities how to protect the night environment. So that's the second goal of the section. And basically, it is not possible to do the third thing without these 2. And the third thing is to protect the night sky. but protect the dark sky, which is basically the basis then for the protection of the whole environment, night environment, from the light pollution. And of course, which is interesting also for me, because I am by my profession an astronomer, it is a necessary condition for high quality astronomical observations, of course. And I selected 4 essential elements which help us in Slovakia to achieve these 3 goals which we have. One of the important things which we have in Slovakia, which is especially increasing the awareness about the issue of the light pollution, is the network, which is quite abundant, of public observatories in Slovakia. The reason for that is that these institutions that come into contact with a large number of the general public and are therefore an ideal place to disseminate information on light pollution, including, of course, its impact on astronomical observations. So by the red dots, you can see how many public observatories are in Slovakia. The second very important thing, which basically fulfill all 3 of the mentioned tasks, are dark sky parks. And it's not only the reason to establish them to protect the dark environment that exists in these areas and basically prevents the situation from getting worse, but by organizing events in these places and publishing leaflets, installation of information boards, these places are ideal places to inform and educate the public. And we have actually 3 dark sky parks in Slovakia. The oldest one is Dark Sky Park Poloniny, which is in the northeast of Slovak Republic, and it's the most darkest corner of Slovakia. And actually now this park is part of the tree park, which is the first dark sky park in the world, which is connecting dark sky parks in 3 countries. So this is the big area of dark sky parks in Slovakia, Poland, and Ukraine. The second one is also international dark sky park. It is on the border of Czech Republic and Slovakia. It's Dark Sky Park Beskydy, which was, by the way, established as a second international dark sky park in the world, just after another dark sky park, which is on the border of Czech Republic and Poland. That was the first international dark sky park in the world. So that second Slovak was the second international in the world. And the youngest one is Dark Sky Park Verkafatra, which is also the smallest one. And this is this tiny red spot, which you can see in the middle of Slovakia. It is the smallest one, but quite an interesting one, because in comparison with and in strong contrast actually with the previous 2, this one, the original idea of establishing of this park didn't come from astronomers or someone who is professionally dealing with light pollution, let's say, but come from business sector. And the idea was to protect the night environment and the night sky so that this place can be used for astrotourism. So there is a hotel located in this dark sky park, which has or is offering such kind of stays, which includes also the observations of night sky. So that the original idea come from them. The third of the projects I would like to mention is the photography contest. We call it Let's Shine on the Road, Not the Stars. And I also consider this one to be one of the major projects we have, because, it's said often that one picture says 1,000 words. So in this way, we can show the public examples of incorrect lighting. You can see many of the Slovak examples in this picture. But also we can show the examples of how to do it correctly. And at the same time, in this way, we can visually easily explain what we are missing out with incorrect lighting. And that is the beautiful night sky you can see on the bottom of the screen. And as was also mentioned, the important component of the effort is the participation in the international projects. And I am mentioning two of them here. First of them is a well-known project Earth Hour, which was started in 2007 in Australia. And now every year more than 170 countries participate in it. And Slovakia is participating since 2011, thanks to our group. And although now this project is primarily focused on the climate change, we have used this opportunity to also raise awareness about light pollution, because as was also said by Connie, by lighting incorrectly, we have a high demand for producing electricity, and indirectly we also contribute to climate change in this way. And the main symbol of this campaign, if you know this campaign, is actually turning off the lights on the monuments and other buildings. As you can see in the top photos, there is a Trenčín Castle and Bratislava Castle in our capital. So therefore, we use this also to communicate that improper lighting is a major threat to the dark skies. And as I said, after all, this contributes to climate change due to high demands on electricity. So this is directly connected with the issue we are discussing. And in the bottom photos, you can see the kids talking about the light pollution in schools as a part of Earth Hour initiative. So it's also an important project which is giving the opportunity to schools to discuss the issue of light pollution. And the second project, which was already mentioned and which really allows to communicate the light pollution issue to public in a very interesting and interactive way, is Globe at Night, because it allows everyone to do its part in scientific measurement of the level of the light pollution. But also one can easily see how the dark night sky is disappearing when one will compare the own observations from different places. So this is really an way how can the public participate in the project which is dealing with the issue of light pollution. And I think that with this I would end, and thank you for your attention. And if there will be some questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that. It's really great to see and hear about what's going on in Slovakia. So I don't see any questions for you right now in the chat, but maybe we'll have some time later if people think of questions as they're listening to other people. We can ask them later. I would like to point out, we had a number of people from various different countries. We do have one person who says they're from Mars, which is pretty incredible. So I am happy that you're here, that you tuned in. I don't know what time it is for you, but I'm sure it's late. Great. So our next winner, I'm going to announce the second winner of the drawing contest, or the art contest really, is Alexandra Stojanovic, who's 17. She's from Serbia. And I'm going to spotlight you so we can all see your face, but also I want to show your beautiful picture. So I will share my screen. I'll go back here. I'm sorry that I narrate everything that I do. All right, wonderful. So Alexandra, thank you so much for submitting this photo. This is a wonderful photo. And I just wanted to know what inspired you to choose this particular image of the night sky, or this particular location, I should say.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for the invite. It's really an honor to be here and speak at this seminar. And basically, my hobby is photography, and I like to document mundane things and in everyday life. So this was actually one of it. This is a park near me actually, where I usually walk around with my friends at night, day, you name it. It's basically every day. So one time I was walking and I really liked the scenery with the stars, how everything aligned basically. And I thought I could just take a picture. I was taking with my phone actually, and just take a picture, and maybe someday I will actually look back at it. But when I came back to my room and actually looked at the pictures that I took, this was where I was impressed by this picture, and it was really capturing everything that you see. And it was just, and I was so proud of it. And when I saw in school, I actually heard about this contest, and I just said to myself, I could, send this picture, and we'll see. Maybe I don't get any award or anything, but it will be a great pleasure for the cause. So I actually sent it, and I'm here speaking right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is really a wonderful thing. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. It's interesting that you say that it's you take images of mundane things, that this particular view is a mundane view for you, that you have such amazing access to a beautiful night sky. And it's amazing that you took that with your cell phone. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your contribution, and congratulations on winning the contest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So our next talk takes a slightly different approach to dark sky protection, and that is Astrotourism. So we're going to bring up Sonal Ascotra. I think we're going to, yes. And she is the program leader of Astro Stays, which is a unique community-centric astrotourism initiative that leverages astronomy for creating sustainable socioeconomic development opportunities for rural communities. It's an innovative form of experiential tourism. Astro Stays brings economic benefits directly to remote regions that have access to clear night skies while creating a unique and engaging experience for travelers. And I think this is unrelated. I could be wrong, but it's still very cool. Sonal she was also a team member of the 2013 International Antarctic Expedition, led by the polar explorer Sir Robert Swan, OBE, who's one of the greatest explorers in history. So that's a really amazing thing. Thank you so much for being here, Sonal. I can't wait to hear about about Astro Stays.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And to share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Looks great.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Kelly. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are on the planet. My name is Sonal Ascotra, and I lead Astro Stays. It's a community-led initiative that leverages astronomy, or more specifically, astronomy-based tourism to create sustainable livelihoods for communities that are residing in remote and rural areas. So I'll take you on a journey to 14,000 feet in the Himalayas. But before that, how can astrotourism be actually used as a tool for livelihood creation for rural communities? Now, the pandemic has dominated our lives for what seems like forever now. And travel industry was absolutely one of the most hardest hit industries among everything that COVID hit. But as the world reopens, people are actually looking to move to more open and remote spaces for traveling, and also not just mass crowded places, but places which are offbeat and connect with the communities that reside in these areas. Now, by the very nature of astrotourism, some of the best vantage points that one can leverage for astronomy and great star viewing are located in rural and remote areas. But mostly the communities that reside have not been able to leverage that form of tourism, which is based on astronomy, to create meaningful livelihood opportunities for themselves. There are a lot of reasons for that, but I think one of the major reasons is that the astrotourism has not been integrated very well into mainstream tourism yet. And the communities that are residing in these areas generally lack the skills that they could actually use to create those sessions and engage travelers for astrotourism. So in 2019, we collaborated with the Office of Astronomy for Development to create a unique astrotourism model, which was community-led. Astrotourism historically and traditionally is generally focused on either scientific experiences or scientific institutions, which are either planetariums or observatories, or these are tours which are led by amateur astronomers. Our focus was to see that how could we provide the skills related to astronomy to all of these people who are residing in these rural areas and have great, incredible dark skies in their backyard, to see if they could leverage that kind of tourism to bring in economic opportunities in that area. So a little bit of context about our organization, Global Himalayan Expedition. We work in Ladakh. We've been there for almost 10 years now and provide solar energy, grid-based clean energy access to rural villages. And Himalayas, they are generally known for their picturesque destinations, and people generally come there for trekking. But the development approach that has generally been for an organization is to start with providing electricity, which again is solar based, and then move on to other aspects, which is digital education, solar access, and then tourism as well. So geographically, this is the area that we work in. The Himalayas are a long chain that extend from Afghanistan in the west to Bhutan. And we work in the Indian part of the Himalayas, which is Ladakh. And Himalayas, like I said, they have century-old culture and heritage, and tourists from all over the world come to the Himalayas, and tourism, in fact, is one of the biggest drivers of economy there. But one of the assets and resources that Himalayas have, which is still untapped, is the clear night skies. Most of the tours that are either led into the Himalayas are either led by, like I said, amateur astronomers, but the communities that reside there, even though they have great knowledge, which is which comes from their ancestors or the local culture, but they've not been able to marry it to the Western science part of it to create those kind of experiences for the traveler. So our idea was to see that how could we bring in those local communities and mobilize them to start a community-led astrotourism initiative. So I'm going to take you through a case study of an implementation that we did in Ladakh. So it essentially starts with community mobilization. One can really have these grand idea in their head, but because it's a community intervention and you really want it to be owned and operated by the community, it is very important that the buy-in is taken as well. And Ladakh, because it's a very remote area, light pollution is not really much of a challenge there. But what we also ensured was that, while we are implementing Astro stays, we are also, teaching them the nuances of how to curb that. Because more travelers and more tourists definitely mean that, there are accommodations that are being set up. So how do we really curb that is something that was also kind of baked in. But before that, how did we really do the entire mobilization? So the lake that you see in the picture is the Pangong Lake. It's really famous lake in Ladakh, something that we share with China, and is generally on the bucket list of most of the travelers and tourists that come to Ladakh. But it's generally like a day trip. So people come from land into Leh, which is like, the downtown, and then make day trips to Pangong and come there. So our idea was to see if, we could leverage, if we could train the villages, the communities that are residing on the banks of this village, on the banks of this lake, in astronomy, and see that, they could start bringing in revenue through the tourists that were coming there for stargazing sessions. So that involved a lot of mobilization, that involved a lot of focus group discussions, and of course, then training the community. And I think that part took a really, really long time for us, because astronomy in itself is considered, a little daunting. And for somebody who doesn't really have a background in science or astronomy, it can actually be pretty daunting. So how do we actually demystify it and break it down to the level that people are, comfortable in communicating with the travelers, during these stargazing sessions was something that we really, really focused on. And for that, we really built on their existing belief systems, meaning, every culture or every civilization on the planet has some connection to the skies. And, Ladakh and Himalayas, still being very, rural and remote, a lot of elderly people, they still depend on the pattern of skies and stars for, even day-to-day activities like shepherding or navigation, or even, when do they harvest or sow their crops. So we started with that. And, once that connection with the skies was established, we started linking it to the modern science part of it. And we went really small because, it was a pilot, and we wanted to see that, how could, communities, we didn't want to really overwhelm them, but also wanted to make sure that the conversations that they have around astronomy are rich, and are meaningful, and they are able to create that kind of experience for the traveler as well. So we started with a few constellations, a few planets, etc., and began with 6 astro stays. So the picture that you see on your screen is from one of our team members using Stellarium. The way it generally happens is that, at the beginning of a month, sky maps are distributed to the team members, and through Stellarium as well, they kind of have a forecast of the kind of objects that they are going to see on that particular night. And that also kind of, sets the expectations of the travelers, because all of us are, I think, accustomed to 70 mm of interstellar and gravity. So, people really come with that kind of a mindset. So it's really, really important to also, set the expectations to see that, this is actually what is it that you're going to see. So they use Stellarium and all those tools. And these are the accommodations. So, one of the things about astrotourism is that it necessitates overnight stays. So initially, like I said, people would generally make a day trip to the lake, the Pangong Lake, to come and see that and then go back. But because, these stargazing sessions and, experiences around dark sky were built, it also necessitated that people stayed back. And, the villagers were actually opening up their houses to these travelers, and the revenue started coming in not through the, dark sky experiences, but also through the accommodations that the villagers built. And these are pictures of some of the astronomy sessions that are happening in the villages. And we generally call our team astropreneurs. It's a 5-member team, and 4 of them are women and 1 male. And the way, because it's a community-led intervention, the way it generally works is that most of the revenue, is pumped back into the community. The salaries are paid for the team. There's a community fund that's taken, and from that community fund, another innovative idea that also happened was that there's a lot of skill in that area in terms of handicraft. There's so much pashmina and cashmere, but what really happened was that the local women who weave all of those handicrafts did not really have an access to a marketplace where they could go to the travelers. And because of these stargazing and dark sky experiences, they actually got a direct access to travelers, and the income started to come not just from the accommodations and the stargazing, but also from the handicraft that the women started to sell. And as a next step, in Astro Stays, some of the feedback, based on the feedback that we got from travelers, the focus is mainly on the stargazing sessions and the oral storytelling. But what we also wanted to do next was to kind of integrate into a more tangible experience, which was, integrated with local elements from the culture. There's so much, richness regarding astronomy in Buddhism and in the Himalayas and Tibet in general. So we wanted to integrate all of that and make it a more tangible experience that people could actually, visualize that timeline of astronomy in that particular region. And this is a Cosmo Hub that we will be launching next month. And it's going to be run again exclusively by women from these villages. The group is again, it's a very diverse group. Some of them are high school dropouts. Some of them are, ladies who've probably never even been to school, but the kind of enthusiasm and passion that they showed to actually create those experiences was just so inspiring. So as we speak, they are actually being trained, on how to conduct these stargazing sessions, and we launch next month. And in addition to the stargazing, there is also, because this time around, we have a little more space in the Cosmo Hub. The women will also be, showcasing the local products that they make. In terms of apricot is a big crop there. So, jams and, local handicrafts. So this will be a space, a community space, which also kind of houses the products that are being, created by these local women. Now, COVID was really, bad for the travel industry, and the Astro says we felt a hit as well. We actually started in 2019, just before COVID hit, and we had just 4 to 5 months of, testing waters, testing the pilot that we had in Man. But what had happened was the revenue that was generated in all of those 4 or 5 months during COVID, when there was no tourism, some of the money was actually being pumped back into community development. So, washing hands was a norm. And Ladakh is like a cold desert. So there were solar heaters that were being bought. There was, greenhouses that were being set up, all from the, the revenue that was being generated from these sessions. And how do we really create that market linkage? I mean, you can create these really beautiful hotspots, but they're not going to sustain unless you actually have travelers coming over. And because these areas are really remote, it's really important that, the word goes out. So for that, to make them more accessible for the travelers who are coming from all over, we, set them up on booking.com and Airbnb, from where people can, book them up. And, we also make sure that the impact and the KPIs, based on which we measure the impact on various things, are linked very closely to the UN SDGs. And we use them as, the indicators for kind of monitoring the progress that we have. I mean, the quantitative part is obviously very easy. You can always... the economics part of it is easy, but what we've also seen is that it is, not just led to a boost, a considerable boost, I would say, in the revenue stream that has come into Man, into this area, but it has also, created these beautiful bonds between people who are coming into these villages. So most of our team members, they've never left this area in their whole lives. And, meeting and interacting with people from such diverse backgrounds has also kind of, led to these beautiful interactions. And this has been the impact so far. We've had almost 2,300 travelers yeah, so, we definitely see a lot of potential in Astro Stays. It's not just about using astronomy for outreach, but how can we actually use astronomy for real on-ground impact, and also while making science more inclusive and more equitable and more accessible for people that reside in such remote areas. So the next step is to identify more communities in more areas which have access to these great skies, and again work together with the communities to create these models of Astro Stays. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this journey into 14,000 feet, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonal. I think I've heard some version of that talk before, but every time I learn something new, and I'm just totally in awe of what you've been able to do. So thank you for that. So we do have a question from Norman Marigsa. I'm very sorry how I said your name. So they say, I love how the focus is making it community-led rather than purely outsourced activities from astronomy or science organizations. Do you also have support from the local government? Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, at least happens once in a Zoom meeting. In terms of support from the local government, because I said like we had just started and then COVID hit, but the support that we really wanted to seek was creating that ecosystem. So there are these tourist information centers which you have, you know, in most of the towns that tourists visit. So of course there was an online market linkage part of it that we were trying to do, but we were also trying to work with the local authorities, you know, working on destination management for various destinations to see if this could be promoted in an offline way as well. So that was the kind of engagement that we had with the local government, and also to, you know, things like, because it's a communal effort, so most of the money, all of the money goes into communal bank accounts. So working with, you know, the government to also see that, you know, that part is sorted easily, because like again I said it's a remote area and all of these operational things can become a little challenging. So yeah, we did get support in that way.
Yeah, I think this next question is related. It's from Julia Josa. Again, I'm very sorry. This is amazing, is what they say. As a radio astronomer, how quote unquote good is the mobile connection in the Astrostays villages?
It wasn't very good till the last year. In fact, till 2021, there was no Wi-Fi connectivity. The village only had a satellite phone, and, you know, somebody had to trek up a little hill to see if you have a signal on the phone, etc. But this year, the government has kind of, you know, based on its plan to ramp up connectivity in these remote areas, there's some bit of Wi-Fi that's been provided, still patchy, but at least a little bit to kind of communicate that, you know, these are the travelers that are coming, or to broadcast any information if there is any, you know, special thing happening in the skies, to kind of alert them that, you know, this is happening. Maybe you can take a note of it and talk to the travelers, you know, during your sessions. So yeah.
Yeah. We have one last question for you. It's from Shreya Saini. And they ask, is this app totally created by you?
Is the app?
Is the app, is the whole enterprise your brainchild, or is this like a team effort?
It's a team effort, for sure. It's a team effort. And I would say the team actually in Ladakh are the real owners of this, because they are the ones, you know, who are out in the trenches at midnight. I mean, we've trained them, given them the skills, created that kind of ecosystem, but they are the ones who are actually, you know, moving out of their houses at 9 p.m. at the night and staying up really, really cold till midnight. So I would say they are the real owners, for sure.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Sanal. And maybe if people have more questions that they come up with, might have some time at the end of this session to return to that. But thank you again for your time and for your work.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce our final winner, or the representative of our final winner. Our third winner of the drawing contest was Houssem Yahya, who's a 17-year-old from Tunisia. And unfortunately, he can't join us today, but his teacher, Ahlam Ludhayev, is here to represent him. So Ahlam, are you with us? Hi. Hello. Where'd you go? I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can see you. And I'm going to show or share my screen so that we can see Houssem's artwork. All right, so Ahlam, can you hear me okay? If you're speaking, you might be muted. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Hello,
Yep.
Susanna. Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so sorry, I don't speak English very well. You know, in Tunisia, we speak French and Arabic.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, and I speak neither of those.
Yes. So, welcome from Tunisia. Thank you very much for enabling my student Hussein Yahya to win a telescope, which he will donate to the club in FIDA. This is great for everyone to benefit from it.
That's really great. I'm so glad that your astronomy club will have the opportunity to work with this telescope. That's a really wonderful opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. Hussam Yahya is a 16-year-old boy fond of astronomy, especially for telescopes. That's why he participated in this competition. He cannot be here today because he has exam.
Oh, well, good luck to Hussam on those exams. That's I'm sure he will do great. I wanted to ask you a question about how you inspire your students to mix art and science together.
Always we participate in all competitions.
Okay.
I will describe painting Hussam. Hussam's painting represents space arts. This is mixing abstract and white astronomy. The dark colors in the painting represents the dark matter in space, which is mysterious and gives the meaning of power. While we see the hot colors, yellow, red, orange, as if they are new coming, but is coming strongly, which represent light pollution. And the danger is causes as it hinders the study of astronomy. As a teacher, amateur, and the supervisor of the astronomy club, I will be very happy to collaborate with other teachers and will be very cooperative because I believe that the future of humanity and all solution of human problems will be found in space. Our principle is based on Einstein's view, his famous statement, creativity is intelligence with fun. That's all. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for fostering this kind of creativity in your students. I think this is a really wonderful example of how abstract art can really like describe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Aishik. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye. Thank you.
Right. All right. So I'm going to remove that. So the finally, our last but certainly not least speaker is Jessica Heim. Jessica holds a master's degree in cultural astronomy. Her dissertation research focused on community experiences with dark sky initiatives and dark sky friendly LED streetlights. Excuse me, dark sky friendly LED streetlights. Those are in air quotes. Jessica's research interests involved exploring human relationships with both sky and land, with a particular focus on dark skies, as well as ethics and policy issues associated with space exploration and development. Jessica, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for holding out so long to speak today. So please take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you see my slides?
Yes, that looks great.
Okay, great. Just give me a moment to get this situated. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Jessica Heim, and I'm happy to have a chance to chat with you all about topics I'm really passionate about: cultural astronomy and dark, starry night skies. Today, I am speaking to you from Minnesota on the traditional and treaty land of the Dakota people, who, along with the Ojibwe, are the indigenous people of this land, Minnesota Makoche, Dakota for land where the water reflects the sky. As Kelly mentioned, my background is in cultural astronomy. What exactly is cultural astronomy, you might ask? A common question I get. If astronomy is the study of the stars in the universe, then what is cultural astronomy? Well, there are various definitions out there by different scholars. One definition I like a lot, given by Dr. Jarita Holbrook. Cultural astronomy is the study of humans and their relationship to the sky. That's pretty clear and straightforward. Dr. Nicholas Kipian also offers a description of the sorts of things those in the field of cultural astronomy do. He says, "We study the many ways in which human beings endow the cosmos with value and use the sky as a theatrical backdrop to tell stories and create meaning." So essentially, cultural astronomy explores the countless ways people have engaged with the night sky and the importance of this to all aspects of their science and culture. Throughout time and across the planet, people have been inspired by the starry night sky we all share. So when you look at the night sky, how do you connect the dots? What pictures do you see? Perhaps you think of the following scene. Here's the big bear, Ursa Major, and the little bear, Ursa Minor. We have Orion, the hunter, and Taurus, the bull. And of course, the king Cepheus, the queen Cassiopeia, and don't forget, there's Draco the dragon hiding off in the corner here. All these constellations come from the ancient Greek and Babylonian traditions. They are probably the most familiar to you, as these are the official constellations recognized by the International Astronomical Union. However, this is only one way of looking at the stars. There are many cultures around the world, and there are many different constellations. For example, here are some of the constellations from the Ojibwe tradition. Rather than the big bear, we have Ojig, the fisher. Rather than a little bear, we have Mung, Loon, and the stars here. And in these stars, we have a figure which looks similar to Orion. This is Wintermaker. He looks similar like Orion, but his arms are much longer. And here at the top, rather than an upside-down flying horse, Pegasus from the Greek tradition, we have a moose. I don't know about you, but I think this pattern of stars actually looks more like a moose than a flying horse. Not only are there different constellations in different cultures, but there are important stories and teachings that go with them. And there are also sometimes protocols as to the proper times and ways to share these teachings. For example, in many Native North American traditions, stories about the constellations are meant to be told only when there is snow on the ground. There are also often substantial layers of meaning for many teachings about the stars, with different aspects of the teachings told at different times or contexts. So these constellations are much more than simply interesting ways to connect the dots in the sky. There's much wisdom embedded in the star knowledge held by many cultures around the globe. On the subject of Indigenous star knowledge, Dr. Dwayne Hamacher has much to say. He has done a great deal of work engaging with Aboriginal Australians on the preservation and communication of their teachings relating to the stars. He notes, traditionally, Indigenous people and their knowledge have simply been dismissed as myth and legend by Western science and not given any recognition or due credit. Indigenous knowledge is a strong scientific component, but is integrated in a holistic manner with social laws and humanistic lessons. Generally speaking, scientists have long ignored this, but this is changing today. In recent years, there has been increased attention on the subject of Indigenous star knowledge. If you're interested in learning more about Aboriginal Australian teachings relating to the night sky, I recommend the Australian Indigenous Astronomy website, containing a plethora of papers, talks, and other resources. A similar endeavor is the Native Skywatchers Initiative, led by Dr. Annette Lee. The Native Skywatchers Initiative seeks to remember and revitalize Indigenous star and Earth knowledge, promoting the Native voice as the lead voice. There are many resources for learning about native star knowledge on the Native Skywatchers website, such as maps of Ojibwe and Dakota constellations, books, videos, and a variety of programs about cultural astronomy with guest speakers from around the world. And the images I showed earlier of the Ojibwe constellations, that's from the planetarium software Stellarium. And that is Dr. Lee's artwork of the Ojibwe constellations that she uploaded onto Stellarium. A commonly held view in many of these traditions is this idea that we come from the stars. In the physical interpretation of this is similar to the Western scientific understanding, but for many cultures, there's an additional spiritual layer added to this as well. So what happens when we can't see the stars because of light pollution? A recent article speaks to this from the perspective of impacts on Indigenous communities, noting, many Indigenous traditions and knowledge systems around the world are based on the stars, and the people's ability to observe and interpret stellar positions and properties is of critical importance for daily life and cultural continuity. The erasure of the night sky acts to erase Indigenous connection to the stars. And as light pollution continues to increase, currently more than 60% of Europeans and 80% of North Americans cannot see the Milky Way from where they live. These images show the progression of light pollution in the United States from the 1950s, the 1970s, the 1990s, and a projection of what 2025 will look like based on current trends. This has resulted in a substantial loss of visibility of the Milky Way and many stars across much of the country. However, if you live somewhere with lighting practices that minimize glare and upward light, or if you travel away from the urban centers, you are once again able to see the vista of our universe. However, now there are substantial sources of artificial light at night coming not only from the ground, but from the sky itself. This new source comes in the form of satellite megaconstellations, assemblages of many satellites, which function as large coordinated groups. These satellites are in low Earth orbit, or LEO, a term which generally refers to orbits less than 2,000 kilometers above the Earth. They are being developed by a growing number of companies and nations for the purpose of providing low latency, high-speed internet across the globe. The first to be launched were SpaceX Starlink satellites in 2019, and since then, additional operators have begun to launch such constellations as well. So what's different now compared to earlier satellite eras? After all, there have been human-made satellites in orbit for more than 60 years. Well, the issue lies not only in the attributes of the satellites themselves, but in the sheer quantity of objects being launched. In early 2019, there were only a little over 2,000 operational satellites in orbit around the Earth. In the 3 years since Starlink came onto the scene, the pace of launches has increased dramatically, and today there are more than 5,000 functional satellites in orbit. There are plans to launch at least 100,000 additional satellites by the end of this decade. The deployment of tens or hundreds of thousands of satellites in the coming years stands to irrevocably alter the appearance of the night sky worldwide. And unlike in the case of conventional ground-based light pollution, the changes to the sky will be visible no matter how remote the locale from which it is viewed. In the past few years, members of the astronomical community and the satellite industry have participated in a series of workshops aiming to find solutions to satellite constellations' impacts on professional astronomy. In order to broaden the conversation beyond professional astronomers and the satellite industry, community engagement was added as a component of SatCon 2. As a part of SatCon 2's community engagement working group, I had the opportunity to engage with individuals from a number of constituencies, such as amateur astronomers, astrophotographers, astrotourism professionals, and the planetarium community. We also engaged with people from various Indigenous communities and sought to learn more about environmental and social justice issues accompanying the rapid increase in launches and growth of the space economy. Our goals were to bring more stakeholders to the table, listen to people's thoughts and concerns, build long-term relationships, and work to ensure that underrepresented voices are heard. In our conversations with these diverse communities, we heard many perspectives on the rapid changes happening in the night sky. Some amateur astronomers found increased satellites to be disruptive to their observations. The potential rise in overall sky brightness from the cumulative effect of increased objects in low Earth orbit was another area of concern. Indigenous members of our working group drew attention to the long and painful history of colonization, and many voiced concerns that the rapid proliferation of satellite constellations may be a new form of colonization. A recent paper in Nature Astronomy highlighted similar concerns. The authors noted, the manner and pace of occupying near-Earth space raises the risk of repeating the mistakes of colonization on a cosmic scale. We must consider the impact of satellite constellations and related future initiatives on the essential human right to dark skies and on cultural sky traditions across all peoples. In the executive summary of the SATCON 2 report, the authors drew attention to the significant degree of impact of satellite constellations on the night sky, noting, the steady and now increasingly rapid growth of the number of satellites in LEO has the potential to transform the appearance of the night sky. We are on the threshold of fundamentally changing a natural resource that since our earliest ancestors has been a source of wonder, storytelling, discovery, and understanding of ourselves and our origins. We transform that at our peril. To conclude, the understanding that the sky and the earth, the above and the below are connected is a part of the teachings of countless traditions across the globe. And it is becoming increasingly clear that what we do in orbit, in space, will have impacts on our skies, our atmosphere, and life on Earth as well. The night sky and the orbital environment surrounding the Earth are shared by all of humanity. The sky belongs to everyone, and the people around the world are impacted by changes in the sky. Thus, we are all stakeholders in the future of the night sky and the space environment. So when we gaze up at the night sky and contemplate the immensity of the universe, perhaps we may also want to ponder the role we play in our continued ability to experience the same view of the cosmos that has been a part of the human experience since time immemorial. It is absolutely possible to minimize ground and space-based impacts on the night sky, but this will only happen if more people become aware of and speak up about these issues. Though current trends are quite concerning, the loss of dark and quiet skies is not inevitable nor necessary. If we have the will to do so, we can make strides towards co-creating an ethical, sustainable future on Earth and in space that is grounded in respect, consideration, and consultation with all affected parties. Thanks for your attention and your interest in dark skies. And I'll have time to take any questions anyone may have.
Thank you so much for that, Jessica. That was really great to hear about all the things that you've been thinking about recently, and probably for a long time as well. So we do have one question for you, maybe just a clarifying question. Shreya Saini says that you mentioned that until, or maybe like after 2025, people won't be able to see the Milky Way. Could you just explain again why that is?
Well, I didn't say that people won't be able to see the Milky Way. What I'm saying is that some of the research that's coming out is looking at what are the effects not only of the streaks in the sky, but also the increases in diffuse night sky brightness. So like having all these things in orbit, if there's little small particles and they collide and you get smaller particles, that all can reflect sunlight. And so the net effect isn't only seeing the actual satellites moving around, but like the sky becomes less dark overall. And so there's increasing research that's looking at trying to model what exactly will be the magnitude of the effects. But just the idea is that the more things that are there, the greater the potential for collisions, and that will exacerbate those effects.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thank you so much for that. I have a question for you, actually. I was wondering if there's a way for people to get involved with this kind of work. If you know of initiatives that they can maybe read about or learn about, we can either put some stuff in the chat or we can email folks about it later.
Yeah, so I would say one of the new things that relates to what Connie Walker was talking about, the IAU Center for the Protection of Dark and Quiet Skies with the satellites, the CPS, there's the community engagement hub of that. And so that is going to be the aspect of the center that is focused a lot on these type of issues, looking at what are diverse stakeholders' perspectives. You know, we're trying to get a sense of what do people think about this issue, how are they impacted, aside from only the people who are in the satellite industry or the professional astronomers. You know, this is the whole planet, everybody's affected. So that's our group of stakeholders, is everyone. So as that website becomes live, there'll be more information about how people can get involved with that aspect. As far as like the cultural astronomy knowledge, things like that, some starting points are the websites I mentioned, Native Sky Watchers and the Aboriginal Astronomy, and related initiatives. There's a lot of interesting things coming out with people. There's a lot more emphasis and interest than there used to be years ago about not only, okay, this is Western astronomy and let's export this everywhere, but like, what are the Indigenous knowledges of that, and being able to work collaboratively with the Indigenous perspectives, also the Western scientific perspectives, and just there's very much value in each of those.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think that's also something that we're trying to really foster at the Office for Astronomy Outreach as well. So thank you so much, Jessica, for your talk. We do have some time for questions. And I have a couple of questions that came in from the chat. And of course, if anybody is holding on to a burning question, please just drop it in the chat and we'll be sure to bring it to the panel. I'm going to remove your spotlight so that we can all just be seen together. Wonderful. So if everybody who's left who would like to open up their video, that would be great if you feel comfortable. If not, that's fine too. But we have one question from, let's see. We have one question from for Yaroslav, actually, from Eleanor Muller. So there's that transboundary area that has 3 dark sky parks. Is that an area with other conservation efforts? And if so, are there conservation agencies that are active supporters of that?
Yeah, actually, in the case of 2 of them, the area is, they are located in the area of national parks in Slovakia, and especially that one which is on the northeast border is also that Polish and Ukraine part is the area of national parks in those countries. So it's not only a dark sky park, but it's also protecting the nature in let's say in general way. So there are these efforts. And when the dark sky park was established, the national park officers were one of the signers of the agreement. So it's supported also by the local community of protecting agencies. Yep.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you. We have another question for Jessica, but also probably for Connie as well. So how to solve the problem of satellite constellation interference? They say, I think maybe we could map the trajectories of the satellites, and that could be used to control satellites to prevent different collisions and things like that. But just how do we solve this problem? Or is there a solution?
You can go first, Connie. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, they do have active detection for many of the satellites for how close in proximity they get to one another, but that's only done to a certain limit. Not every satellite has that capability. But here on Earth, we do have a proposal that we had just put into the National Science Foundation to actually predict when they're going to be overhead. In this case, observatories, but we're also planning to extend that to anybody who wants to not just heavens above, but that has that capability. But for people who are observing and want to know, want to avoid the satellites, they're actually going to have software to be able to do that in an instant. But there are other things that we have to consider. That's the brightness of the satellites and how they're going to affect imagery, whether it's astrophotography or astronomical research. And for that, we're going to try to create software too. But I have to emphasize that not everything can be taken out, and you lose data. You lose the capability, say, if you're doing the asteroid searches, you might actually mask an incoming asteroid that could be catastrophic. There's different things that are of that nature that we have to be concerned with. So a lot to this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too as well, just like in addition to the issues of, okay, you have the mitigation, that's more of a factor for professional astronomy, but you can't do that with a lot of the naked eye observations. It's in real time. And so a huge component of this is like, what are the features of the satellites? Because you can't just avoid seeing what's up there. So one area that's important is like the engineering stages of these satellites to be able to test in advance. How bright are they going to be? That type of thing. So that's very important as well. So there's the science, engineering, that aspect. And then the other thing is also policy, legal elements of this as well tie into that. What are the requirements to look at for licensing, things like that. So there's many aspects to the issue, and you kind of have to look at all of them to be able to find solutions.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's a very difficult problem, and there's a lot of things to keep track of. So I'm glad that the IAU is spending so much time thinking about this now. Another person asks, I think kind of related, what's the cleaning process? Sorry, it's Garvin Reese. Garvin Reese asks, what's the cleaning process for unfunctional satellites to bring them down?
Jessica, you want me to try that first?
Sure.
It's pretty much, it is the Wild West up there in many ways, but there are deorbiting policies that particular satellite companies are taking. A lot of them, the higher they are, the more time it takes for them to deorbit. So anything that is above perhaps 600 kilometers are going to take more than 25 years to maybe even hundreds of years to deorbit. Some of the companies now are trying to deorbit in less than 5 years, especially in the lower orbits where they can do that more readily. And that means a lot of them will burn up in the atmosphere upon re-entry. However, there's a lot of complication with that too, because the burnup of satellites also contributes to the amount of, say, aluminum in our atmosphere. So almost nowhere, anywhere you turn, there's a related situation that can actually arise because of some sort of mitigation that you want to try to implement. There are also individual companies that are now coming online or into fruition that will try to actually launch and retrieve satellites, believe it or not. To me, that only adds more satellites up there, but their function will be to actually physically retrieve, and there's at least a half a dozen ways that I'm not even familiar with which they do that. So there's a burgeoning industry there as well. Jessica, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So just another thing to think about is, we're talking a lot about satellites at the end of life, but then you also have the debris aspect. And so, like, as Connie mentioned her talk earlier today, there's debris that we can track, and then there's the debris that's so small that we can't track. So that aspect is very difficult to clean up. I mean, if you don't even know where the stuff is and it's tiny, but it's still dangerous if it hits something. And then just also to elaborate with the re-entry, like people tend to think, oh, stuff just burns up in the atmosphere. Well, if you have a couple things, it's no big deal. But when you have a huge magnitude of stuff coming in, that does affect, stuff just doesn't disappear, it transforms into something else in the atmosphere. And then just also there are environmental impacts associated with the launches. What are the chemicals, things like that? When you just have a few things going up once in a while, you can kind of go, oh, well, that's minimal compared to other impacts. But when you're talking about the huge magnitude of the growing space economy, it's something that really does need to be factored in. How are we affecting the upper atmosphere? What might be the climate effects? There's a lot of interesting research starting to emerge in this area, and we need a lot more research because, it's a lot better to be thinking about things ahead and think proactively about how to mitigate them instead of, oh my gosh, we had this huge problem. What are we going to do? If you have too much debris going on, you have difficulties with, is it going to be safe for humans to be in those similar orbits? And, you have that aspect with increasing space tourism, things like that. How do we protect the lives of the people up there? How do we protect the safety of the satellites we have? There's so many different valuable services that satellites provide. And it's really important to be able to create an environment that keeps those things and individuals safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, showcasing the complexity of the problem, I think really highlights how we need to get more people involved to really truly understand what's going on. This next question is for everybody. But how, Prachi Samant says, is there any way that we can join in on the initiatives? I know that you mentioned a number of things in all of your talks. And is there any way that we can help you or join you? So if you could just maybe highlight a couple more of those again, and maybe what I'll do is I'll send out an email to everybody that registered on the Eventbrite link, and with all of this information so that you have it on hand right in front of you, so you can take action in your own way.
We're going to have a website open very soon, and within a few weeks. And it's going to be for the satellite constellation concerns at the center. And it's going to be www.cps.iau.org. And I had already put that into the chat on YouTube, and I could do it here on the chat as well. And that'll be live and have all this information where you could contact us. And in the respective areas, the 4 areas I had mentioned earlier, community engagement or policy or the satellite industry or SatHub, which is basically the software and observations part of things. And so please feel free.
Does anybody else want to talk about how folks at home can get involved? Maybe in your projects or just in their own communities?
I guess I'll just add briefly, just with a lot of the ground-based light pollution issues, getting involved with the International Dark Sky Association, as Connie mentioned earlier, is a really great way. There's just like to check out their website. They have so many resources and materials. It's just like this endless mine of things you can check out. So I would really strongly suggest that anybody who's interested in any aspect of dark sky advocacy in any way to start with that website, because there's information about advocates around the world. Maybe there's somebody in your region or your country that you can contact that's been doing something. There's this list of all these different dark sky advocates, so then you can network and learn from other people's successes, things like that. So I would say that. And then just to reiterate what Connie said about the CPS website, addressing more of the satellite constellation issues, I'd say would be some really good starting points for people.
Maybe I just can add that in addition to looking for a website, at least from our experience, you can just find the nearest public observatory or astronomical club or organization, and as the light pollution is a real issue for astronomers, they will know in a specific country what is done, and can direct someone to the organization in the country or the club which is dealing with this issue.
So now, is there anything you'd like to add? Nope. It's okay. So we have one final question, and this is a sad question, so I want you to put a happy spin on it. Osovanu Magdalena asks, how long will the sky be clear? I think it's a sad question.
You can start, Connie. I'll come in afterwards.
Well, I mean, one of Jessica's images in her slides was something that I show almost all the time, and it is the progress of light pollution from a few decades ago through, say, 2025. And when I first started showing this, it was a long time ago, actually, but the projection is pretty clear and pretty appropriate even now, years later, and it's Oh, the only thing that we will in the United States at least be able to go to see a pristinely dark night sky in just a few years is the national parks, which are all out in the western part of the United States. Light pollution is pretty prevalent in the rest of the United States, and I think it's pretty similar for the rest of the world. Unless we can take an active part in pulling back the effects of light pollution and at least slowing it down, and I think we can do this, we're going to have a drastic problem in not being able to see a starry night sky. And the benchmark for this is being able to see your beautiful Milky Way galaxy arch overhead. That gives you the beginning of what they traditional astronomers call it a pristinely dark night sky. It's almost there, it's not quite there, but at least you see the Milky Way arching overhead. And I would say that we all have the power to do this. Light pollution is the easiest of all pollutions to redress, to fix. And we can just start at home with our lighting and continue outward to maybe our community and taking an active part with our making the ordinances in our cities, and even getting involved with IDA, which gives you a plethora of ways to get involved. Jessica?
Yeah, so I think how I'll answer that is just by sharing a little bit of my personal experience, like how I ended up doing my master's research on dark sky advocacy was about the time I was doing that was when the cost of LEDs came down, that they started being implemented widely. And so like where I live, there used to be like, you know, this area in one direction that was light polluted, but the whole rest of the sky was very clear. And like there was just one weekend where they put in on these local county roads, and we're not talking like new lights, we're just talking swapping out the lights. They took out the old high pressure sodium and put in downward facing, looked like, you know, good design LEDs, but the spectrum was so incredibly blue. I was gone for a weekend giving a talk about dark sky issues. I come back and I see this 360-degree around the horizon sky glow. And this was no additional fixtures. This was just swapping out it just because that blue wavelength is so short, it just reflects like crazy. And so I just decided, I'm like, okay, either I'm going to go up in a puff of smoke or I'm going to do something about this. Because like seeing the night sky, I mean, that to me is like the ultimate stress reliever. And then I go out and I'm like, I see this light pollution, I'm getting mad. And so what I did for my dissertation research was I did a case study of a community in Idaho that did dark sky friendly LEDs, because it's not that LEDs are inherently terrible. It's just that you have all these capabilities for different kinds of lights. What came along first was this very white bluish light, and that's very problematic for use outdoors at night. But I did this study on a community that did a really good job of cutting edge LEDs, that everything was aimed downward really well. They actually lit the intersections better than they were before, but there was less sky glow. It was a warmer light. And so it's totally possible. So I was looking at like the technical aspects, and then also what was the community process? How did people work together? And people had different reasons why it was important to them. Some people didn't care that much about the sky, but they didn't want the glare in their eyes. And so like my point in this is just that it is very possible to make changes. It's just that it isn't kind of the status quo that happens. So it just kind of all depends on the actions people take. Since the advent of lower cost LEDs, a lot of worldwide, the light pollution in a lot of ways has gotten worse because it's cheaper. So then when something's cheap, people waste it. So that's been a problem a lot of times, because people are like, oh, this is environmentally friendly, it's energy efficient. And then, okay, now we can put something that's way brighter out there than we used to. So you have to be very conscious to mitigate against that. So that's what I would say about the ground-based aspects, is just being more conscious about lighting. It is possible, but it just takes a lot more awareness. A lot of people just don't think about this. Even I'd say about communicating with this, even if you are talking to people who don't care at all about the night sky, you can talk about glare and about having lighting in a way. So if it's aiming down, you can see better. So I think, you know, what points you emphasize differ based on who you're talking to. You can still do these things without having to have the dark sky be the motivation. And then as far as the aspect relating to satellite constellations, you know, that's just so different in a way because it's not as much local. It's this global thing. You have, in a way, a lot fewer actors, but that are having a much more massive impact. As far as, you know, when will skies not be clear? I mean, it's this continuum. I mean, I can see where I live at a relatively high latitude, I see so many more satellites now than I did a year ago, especially in the twilight hours. And as Connie mentioned, there has been really good, meaningful dialogue that's ongoing with satellite operators, and that's incredibly important to make sure that we're continuing to have these conversations about how to keep the brightness down. But just with currently, I mean, the thing is they're visible to the naked eye a lot of the times. There's a lot of different projects going up because, just like the LEDs, the costs are going down. And so it becomes more economically feasible to do these big projects in orbit that wouldn't have been possible before. So we have to be on alert for the same thing. Okay, it's cheaper. Now what is going to happen? And I think the importance is to have that constant dialogue to know what people are thinking of doing, to be able to have an environment where you're discussing these things early on in the design phase. So you don't have something going up and you're like, oh my gosh, wow, that's brighter than Venus. And we see it for whatever portion of the night. I did want to also mention that generally speaking, the satellites are more visible at a little bit higher altitudes. There's some papers out there. I can send Kelly some of the links to some interesting papers. People might be interested in looking at that. But yeah, it definitely is something that's a growing issue that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you're going to be seeing, there was one paper, it was Aaron Boley and several other people had written, and they were saying, based on like the amount of light pollution, like, what the amount of stars that people can currently see about 50 degrees north in Canada, that with the full outbuild of a certain number of constellations, the average person in Canada would see more satellites than stars in the sky within a certain amount of time. And I can send the link to that paper out. And if it all depends on what are the characteristics of the things launched, how many are launched, that type of thing. So I just say it's something that we have to continue to engage with to address. Otherwise, it will become a massive issue. And even if they're dimmer, you have binoculars, you're going to see a lot of things going through your field of view. It's a very different night sky than what we had a few years ago.
And maybe if I can add one thing which needs to be stressed out, I think, is that you can maybe run out from the big city or somewhere to the desert to be in a location which is not that polluted by the lights of the city. But the problem with satellites is that they will be visible from everywhere. And especially the thing is that maybe they are not that visible for observers without some telescopes or which when you are observing just by eyes. But for professional astronomers, this is also a really concerning issue, because most of the professional observatories, yes, are not located in the city, because you cannot have a professional observatory in a very polluted, light polluted city. But there will be no place to hide from the satellites, even with the professional observatories. So it's also an concerning issue for professionals, not only for the night sky lovers, I would say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, we're making it really clear. Maybe we're speaking to the choir, but I hope that we're making it very clear that this is not just a problem for astronomers. This is a problem for everybody. And hopefully we will start to work together a little bit more with all of these networks that we've now created, working together to end light pollution and to keep our skies nice and dark and quiet. So I think we're all getting ready to depart. I think we're nearly at the hour. So I think we'll sign off here, but thank you all for being here. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the contest winners who came and participated in today's seminar. It was really great to have all of you here. It was really great to have all of the participants here, everybody on YouTube, commenting the whole time in the chat. So thank you to everyone, and I hope you have a great Tuesday, if it's still Tuesday for you. I hope it's lovely.
Thank you.